The B-17 Flying Fortress gets the glory. The B-24 Liberator did the work. By the end of the war, the United States had built more B-24s than any other bomber in history. 18,482 of them. The overlooked fact: the B-24 could carry 5,000 pounds of bombs 1,800 miles. The B-17 could only manage 1,200 miles with the same load. But the Liberator was not a beautiful aircraft. Pilots called it ugly, fragile, and unforgiving. They also trusted it to bring them home from 2,000 miles away. The trust was earned the hard way, and the aircraft's greatest contribution had nothing to do with bombing cities. The B-24 was designed in response to a 1939 Army Air Corps requirement for a bomber that could carry 2,000 pounds of bombs 3,000 miles. The key innovation came from a little-known engineer named David Davis. He designed a wing that was long, thin, and mounted high on the fuselage. That wing gave the B-24 its range. It also made the aircraft handle like a truck. Pilots said the Davis wing would fly, but it would not forgive. The result was a bomber that improved with each variant. The B-24D fixed the fuel system. The B-24G fixed the tail gunner position. The B-24J fixed the autopilot. But even the final version had quirks. The bomb bay doors were operated by hand crank. In a B-17, they opened with a switch. So, the B-24's combat debut in Europe was honestly not all that promising. The 8th Air Force actually lost 12 Liberators in its first 3 missions over Germany. By around mid-1943, ground crews had gone ahead and added rubber self-sealing liners to every B-24's wing tanks. And, the fix really did work, but it actually took about 18 months to fully implement. The B-24's second, and honestly more consequential role, was anti-submarine warfare. Before 1942, German U-boats operated with, pretty much impunity in the mid-Atlantic. One decision that often goes overlooked is how the U.S. Navy actually borrowed B-24s from the Army and, painted them gray. The Navy gave these aircraft a new name, PB-4Y1 Liberators. And interestingly, they often featured a surface search radar antenna mounted under the nose. It looked kind of like a mattress, maybe a little ungainly, but definitely effective. Now, the third overlooked decision was that the B-24 ended up becoming the primary bomber of the Pacific theater, all because of its impressive range. No other Allied bomber, at the time, could reach Japanese-held islands from bases in Australia. This was a huge factor in the Pacific campaign. But the heat and humidity of the Pacific brought along problems that crews in the European theater just never had to deal with. The B-24's hydraulic systems, for example, failed constantly in those tropical conditions. It was a real challenge for the ground crews, who often found themselves replacing hydraulic lines in the sweltering heat. Sometimes with a snakeskin draped over the landing gear for a bit of good luck. In Europe, the B-24 was a workhorse. In the Pacific, it was a lifeline. Without it, MacArthur's island-hopping campaign would have moved at, about half speed. The B-24 Liberator never received the public affection given to the B-17. It was not beautiful. It was not forgiving. It was not glamorous. But the men who flew it knew what it did. They knew that the Liberator could take them to Berlin and back, or from Darwin to Borneo, or from Iceland to the Black Pit. The B-24's real legacy isn't really about technology. It's all about logistics. The United States managed to win the air war because, it built an ugly bomber that could actually reach the fight. 18,482 Liberators. That's actually more than the total number of B-17s, Lancasters, and Halifaxes combined. I mean, sometimes quantity really does have a quality all its own. The Liberator didn't win the war by itself. Still, the truth is, the war couldn't have been won without it. Subscribe to War Machiner and share this if you value history that goes deeper.